Yesterday, connecting past. Today, with an outer view. Tomorrow, to understand future. Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow is the program that covers the current contemporary social issues in the light of our history, to understand our yesterday, to live fully today and tomorrow. Yesterday, Today, Tomorrow with In Song Kim.
Hello, I'm host of Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, and we have a special guest, Miss Reggie Littlejohn's here with us. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, you are the founder and president of the Anti-Globalist Alliance and the Women's Right Without Frontiers. And wow, and just share a little bit about yourself to us.
I'm an attorney, and in the mid-90s, I represented a couple of refugees in their cases for political asylum in the United States. They were from China, and one of them was a victim of the one-child policy. She was forcibly sterilized, meaning that they literally picked her up and dragged her out of her house, screaming and pleading and crying, and held her down to a table and performed a tubal ligation, which is major abdominal surgery, without anesthesia. And she had a massive infection and was permanently disabled after that. And that's how I discovered in the mid-90s that the one-child policy was not voluntary the way that the Chinese Communist Party, their propaganda machine, was saying. It was enforced through forced abortion, forced sterilization, and infanticide. So I founded Women's Rights Without Frontiers to expose and oppose forced abortion in China. And then we very shortly after that began saving baby girls in China. These baby girls are not being hunted down by the government, but their own families, because of son preference, would try to persuade or really coerce the mother, especially of a second daughter, or God forbid of a third daughter, to either have an abortion or give up the child. And so we established something called our Save a Girl campaign, which is absolutely unique. We're the only organization in the world that has boots on the ground inside of China that is actively saving baby girls from basically son preference, where, as your listeners probably know, China has moved from a one-child policy to a three-child policy. Well, that may cut down on the forced abortion by the government, but it does not cut down on the pressure by the family to get rid of baby girls, especially if that baby girl is a second daughter or a third daughter. So we have a network of field workers on the ground inside of China that is able to find women who are being pressured by their husbands and their in-laws to basically abandon a baby girl, or who are so impoverished that the baby girl is at risk. Or another situation that's common in the Chinese countryside is that the mother is so stressed out, either through lack of food or just the circumstances of her life, that she cannot produce milk. So then they have to buy milk powder, which they cannot afford. And so then their solution is to give up the baby girl. So we go to their door and we say, congratulations on your daughter. Girls are as good as boys, which is something that is not heard in the Chinese countryside. And we will give you a stipend of $25 a month for a year to empower you to keep your daughter. And we have helped girls stay with their mothers. More than 300 girls be able to stay and be raised by their mothers so far with that campaign.
Wow.
Then at the same time, we realized that there are a lot of abandoned widows in our area. So I call these widows the invisible victims of the one-child policy, because when China had its regular traditional culture, number one, kids were very loved and the elderly were venerated. And a couple would have, a lot of kids. It was a big farming family, and then those kids would have a lot of kids, so that by the time the original couple would become old, they had a large extended family to support them, and they were venerated. Now, under the one-child policy, they have very small families, and a lot of these widows have no one to support them. Their kids don't visit them, and they're just destitute, and there is a really big problem with senior suicide, especially among women in the countryside. So the same network that saves girls also saves widows, and we go to their door and we say, you are a human being created by God in his image, and we are here to help you. And this is something that these women have never experienced in their lives under communist China, somebody just coming to their door and wanting to help them because they need help. And so they inevitably ask, well, why? I mean, what do you want from me? And we say, well, what we want from you is for you to be able to eat every day and for you to know that you're loved. And a lot of these widows and a lot of the mothers of the babies are coming to faith because our field workers in China are passionate Christians. And they talk about Jesus Christ, and people are coming to faith through our efforts in China.
Wow, what an incredible story. So when did it all happen? Is it currently or is it before? All this ministry, is it happening right now or?
Oh yeah, we right
Wow.
now we are supporting about 150 families in China. Between the girls and the widows, it's approximately 150 families. So if anybody wants to help with that, they can go to my website, womensrightswithoutfrontiers.org. That's womensrightswithoutfrontiers.org. And on the upper right-hand side, it says Save a Girl, and it says Save a Widow. And you can click on that and find out more about how you can help save baby girls and widows in China.
Wow. So how does government respond to this?
Oh, they
The
don't.
Chinese government. They don't know?
Well, I'm sure they do know because it's on the internet. Okay. But we don't tell anyone where our network is. I mean, China is a very, very large country, and they don't know where we are. And so obviously, I'm not going to say where we are in China. Even my own board, even my own husband does not know where we are in China. So it's a big secret, and our network is very sophisticated. I mean, they've been doing this for more than 10 years now, and they've never had an encounter with the authorities. But then the other thing that's really important is prayer. So for those who are people of prayer, please pray that God will continue to hide my network under the shadow of his wing, and that we will never be discovered by the Chinese Communist Party, because these brave women who form our network are taking their freedom into their hands every day by doing this work.
Oh, wow. So I'm just kind of wondering, it just kind of reminds me that probably I met those American missionary like you when I was in Korea, and they are strong Christians, much stronger than Christian here in US. That's how I felt, right?
Right.
And oh wow, I mean, so thank you so much what you do.
Well, thank
It's
you.
incredible.
Just so you know, the network in China is not Americans going over into China. It is
Okay.
Chinese Christians. I mean, if
Oh,
I had, if I were to go over there, I'd blow the network. Probably, I bet that most of the villages that I would visit have never had an American come to that village ever. All right. So
okay.
I completely blow the network if I went over there. So
Yeah.
these people are Chinese house
Oh.
church Christians that are doing this.
Oh wow. So American probably cannot go there now, helping them.
No,
Right?
no. People.
Oh, yeah, that's why I was asking. Yeah.
No, I have
Yeah.
never. It would be very, very unwise for me to go and visit my network in China, because number one, I would blow the network, and number two, I'd probably get arrested. So, I mean, I had played a pretty powerful and even unique role in exposing the truth about the one-child policy with documentation that was irrefutable. So in the like around the 2008, 2009, 2010 timeframe, basically the world believed that the Chinese propaganda that the one-child policy was voluntary. And I was able to, I've testified 9 times before the US Congress, and I was able to document forced abortion, forced sterilization, forced contraception, and infanticide in, I don't know, I think 12 or 13 provinces in China. So all of these things the Chinese Communist Party would consider to be state secrets. And if I went over there, they would arrest me for disclosing state secrets. So, I mean, I don't go over there ever.
Okay, yeah. And even I think Korea, while we were growing up, there was a two, it was not like one child policy, it was not really forced upon, but there was a slogan. It does not matter a boy or girl. I think we encourage people to have only two. And I didn't know even when I was growing up that was abortion was behind the scene. And so, yeah, and I came to US. I didn't even know what it was, but I think right now, over the years, I'm doing pro-life radio for a long time, 10 years, and I learned so much. And I'm just kind of because I'm a kind of outsider, right, for immigrants looking in, and I thought America abortion was different. It was more voluntarily and
Well,
more women's right,
right,
right?
right, right. So of course, abortion and my organization stays out of the U.S. abortion debate. You know, we focus on China, but in China,
Mhm.
you know, the government will force people to have abortions and has
Yeah.
historically. In America, you know, the government does not force people to have abortions. So that's a huge difference. I mean, in China in the 90s, and even in
Mhm.
the early 2000s, they had family planning jails, you know, where women who were trying to escape the abortion, they would catch them and throw them into a family planning jail. You know, the United States does not have family planning jails. It's
Okay.
very, very different.
Mm. Okay.
For the
Yeah.
mother, it's not any different for the baby.
Oh, okay. But how did you really start this? Motivate you? You share a little bit about the helping a Chinese lady, right? Who were refugee.
Refugee.
Yeah,
Right.
refugee.
Well, I mean, I just remember sitting in my office at this law
Mhm.
firm one day on a beautiful sunny day in San Francisco and just looking out the window, and seeing, you know, the boats on in the bay and just thinking to myself, here I am living the American dream. And at this very moment on the other side of the world, there are women who are getting dragged out of their homes and strapped down to tables and forcibly aborted up to the ninth month of pregnancy.
Mm.
So that was a huge part of my motivation.
Yeah, yeah. And then you just kind of formed the organization. And how did it start about? Since you couldn't go to China, and how did it all come about? I mean,
Well, okay, my husband and I sold our home and we put down some money to start this organization. And there was another very generous couple that helped us start this organization.
uh-huh.
And so then the way I was able to start, well, actually, I can't talk about the way I was able to start saving girls. So I'm sorry. It's
Right.
very secret. You know, I have a
Okay.
network and I can't say anything about how I connected with them at
Okay.
all. So.
Yeah. And do you have any passion about in America helping women in here?
Well, my passion for America, obviously, I care very deeply about America. But what has been going on recently is that because I was so familiar with Chinese style totalitarianism, I
Hmm.
became very alarmed to see it coming to the United States and to the
Yeah.
world through
Hmm.
the World Health Organization,
Hmm.
and the United Nations, the World Economic Forum. And so that's when, in addition to continuing with my work at Women's Rights Without Frontiers, I
Hmm.
co-founded something called the Sovereignty Coalition, and now I have founded and am the president of a new organization called the Anti-Globalist Alliance. And what we
Mm.
do is we are exposing the way that the World Health Organization, for example, is that if they get what they want, it will really seriously damage or destroy our national sovereignty and our personal medical freedom.
Yeah. Before we get into that, because we're going to have a two parts of the program. So this is first one, and I would like to know what do you see in America, the similarity of the totalitarian communism is coming to our country. What do you see it in
Well,
U.S.?
I see. Okay, so the Chinese Communist Party is at war with us. I mean, they stated in 2019 that they have a people's war against the United States. So they're at war with us. We just don't know it. So the way that they do that is through what is called elite capture. And what that means is that they go to various people and also institutions in the United States and infiltrate and try to take them over. So we've got a lot, a Chinese Communist Party infiltration or influence in our government, in our education, in our healthcare, in our media, in our entertainment industry. They're buying up farmland, etc. And so this is something that people need to be aware of, and we need to stop, because the Chinese Communist Party just doesn't, they don't, they've not hidden the fact that they want to become the dominant force in the world by 2050. And if that's going to happen, or 2049, actually, that would be 100 years after the takeover of China. And in order to do that, they have to be dominant over the United States, because right now we are the dominant one.
Yeah, so I think the most American are confused with the globalism, and China want to be a world leader, and it looks like it's kind of separate issues, and people don't see that China is kind of background of that globalism, right?
Right, that's right. I mean, okay, they are separate issues, but they are very importantly connected. So the sort of the unrestricted warfare of the Chinese Communist Party and the globalist attempted coup, I guess I would say, in some ways are separate, but in some ways they work together, because it's number one, China has huge, like, outsized influence at these globalist supranational governmental or pseudo-governmental organizations. So, for example, they were instrumental in installing Tedros Ghebreyesus, who is the Director General of the WHO. They have a lot of, too much, way greater influence at the United Nations than you would think, and influence at the World Economic Forum. So that's one way that they exert their power beyond their own borders. So to a large extent, the Chinese Communist Party is setting the agenda for these organizations, and also it's the China model that is being implemented. So the China model is like the China social credit system. In China, everything is monitored about everyone, and it's all centralized in a database, and it's on an app on your phone. So in China, they have real-time geolocation, so they know where you are. They have facial recognition, so they know what you look like. And then they are also collecting data about all your social media posts, your internet search history. So if you search for things they don't like, for example, Tiananmen Square massacre, that will get you in a lot of trouble. Your internet spending history, your medical history, your criminal history, and all of that is centralized on this phone, on this app on your phone. And so if you are a person that just always goes along with everything and is totally obedient to the Chinese Communist Party, and then they will give you a high social credit score, which will enable you to live what looks like a normal life. But if you disagree with them, your score is going to go down. And if your score goes down enough, it'll be a situation where you may lose your job. You may your kid might not be able to go to a good school. You might not be able to travel. And if the score keeps going down, they will shut you off from your credit card and your bank account. And if you are a true dissident, they can just disappear you. I mean, they know what you look like, where you are at all times. And that the capability of doing that is coming to the United States through the COVID response. So that's when I started turning my attention to the United States and to the world. Was seeing how the World Health Organization primarily was responding to COVID, and seeing that mimicked or could implement the China social credit system through what used to be called vaccine passports, and they're now calling them digital health IDs.
So we want to save this more detail for next program. But how much do you think we are implementing that system that you're talking about, Chinese system? Basically, I can see a gradual changes, but where are we at?
I'd be interested to know, what do you see as gradual changes?
Oh, I see it. I see it a lot. I mean, as a probably someone who came from different country
Right.
and experienced a little bit of how North Korea, South Korea interacted for a long time, and I know how the communism works. So it's very, I get very sensitive about how it changes very much.
So,
So what do you see?
well, what I see is that all of these different elements that I am talking to you about are already getting tracked. Okay, so I mean, your internet search history is being captured, your internet spending history, your social media posts, your medical history, your criminal history if you have one, your bank account, your credit cards are already all being tracked. So that's the hard part, is tracking all this stuff and gathering all the data. The easy part is just to pull it together and put it in one central space and give you like a social credit score. And that part is, can happen at any moment because the infrastructure has been laid. And once that happens, we're going to be in, trapped in what I call a digital gulag.
Yeah.
And you can see it also, that they are using this to persecute Christians. There was a memo that came out of the FBI in Virginia saying that traditional Latin Mass Catholics are potential extremists and even potential, I believe they even said that they're potential domestic terrorists. Because traditional Latin Mass Catholics have certain beliefs, like they have a pro-life belief, they have a pro-family belief, which are sort of anti-woke. They're anti what the government wants us to believe, and so then they call these people like domestic threat actors, which is crazy. It's a way of persecuting Christians for traditional Christian values.
Wow. So it was kind of, I've been thinking about it, I've been observing, but it's hearing from you is more shocking. It's more of the confirmations that what I've been thinking about and seeing is coming really true. And you are fighting against it. So how much do you think we have a hope for that, to fighting against globalism?
Well, I think that we have a hope if people will wake up and will stand up and will take action. We do not have a hope if everybody's just going to stay asleep and do nothing. And so there is a vote that's coming down in May. So just a couple months from now, just a few months from now, in the World Health Organization. That is a very, very important vote. It's the World Health Assembly is going to be meeting to vote on the new pandemic treaty and the amendments to the international health regulations. And if the World Health Organization is able to get its way, and if these pass, it's going to establish a what I call a digital gulag, an international, interoperable digital technocracy, police state that the world has never seen before.
Yeah. Okay. So the part one, thank you so much for being with us. We're going to continue talk about part two with Miss Reggie Littlejohn. And thank you so much for being with us. And we're going to continue talk about this issue. Thank you.